All right. What a day, folks. What a day for the Denver Nuggets, for the NBA, for a variety of situations that have been going on for a while, and a lot of stuff has come to a head. Welcome to Pickaxe and Roll. Brett's Brad, good friends here at Mile High Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets and what has been a pretty interesting stretch. Obviously, the trade deadline is central to everyone's thinking, and rightfully so. The trade deadline came and went. The Nuggets made a small move, one that I've been predicting and talking about for a while. If you've noticed, haven't really been talking a lot about other additions that the Nuggets could make because I had a very, we'll say, sneaking suspicion that this is the direction that they were going to go the entire time. And yeah, this is a pretty interesting place for Denver to be now. And we'll talk about why throughout this podcast. Hunter Tyson traded to the Brooklyn Nets along with a 2032 second round pick. In exchange, the Nuggets get a 2026 second round pick. They actually did get something back in this deal. I actually think they did pretty reasonably well to do that and clear some salary. But the 2026 pick, I believe, is the lesser of the Atlanta Hawks and Los Angeles Clippers picks in this particular year. So I don't know where the other half of that is going, but right now, as it currently stands, both of those teams, Atlanta is in slot number 14 and the Clippers are in slot number 11. So I've been talking about this. I think both teams will probably be around there, if not a little bit lower. Denver's probably getting back the 45th pick in the NBA draft this year. That's about where it will be. So they trade a future second, and that's something that is 6 years down the line. They don't necessarily need to worry about it that much. And they get back something that they could potentially use in this upcoming draft. So not a bad deal by any stretch of the word from a valuation perspective. And what it, of course, did was it allowed them to get under the luxury tax. They were about $2.2 million over. And my mistake. They're about 400,000 over, and Hunter Tyson's $2.2 million salary drags them down under it to give them about $1.8 million in salary cap space or luxury tax space, I will say. Why this matters. First and foremost, Denver's at 13 players now. They are going to try to add a couple of guys. One of them, most notably, is Spencer Jones. They needed some flexibility underneath the luxury tax to feel like they could convert him. That was always the goal. That was always something that they're going to try to do. Depending on how much he gets and the amount that they give him, they will try to also get a 15th player at some point during the season and also stay under the luxury tax. I have my doubts that can happen, but it's been explained to me that it can. So put that aside for a second. The long and short of it is that the Nuggets are now without Hunter Tyson. Now, he hasn't played that much this season. When he has played, he's been pretty bad, as has the most of Denver's end of bench situation. And this situation that Denver now finds themselves in with 13 guys as opposed to 14 even. Tamar Bates has been out. Denver's got so many injuries, including Peyton Watson that popped up in the game yesterday. Sounds like he's got a grade 2 hamstring strain, according to friend of mine, Tony Jones, who's over at The Athletic. There is a lot to figure out here from a depth perspective, from a talent perspective, and the Nuggets need guys. And so the idea here is that this could potentially speed up the process of converting Spencer Jones, which, I mean, you saw against Detroit, not having Spencer Jones at a time where you also don't have Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson, and then Peyton Watson goes down, it's going to be pretty stressful. It's going to be pretty stressful for a lot of people. So the Nuggets need somebody. They need some reserves. They need somebody who can contribute on a consistent basis. And Spencer Jones will be able to do that when, in fact, he gets converted. There was a report from Chris Haynes earlier today that Spencer Jones would get converted, or he was there was an agreement in place. I haven't seen that anywhere else, so I haven't like fully accounted for it yet because there's no dollar amount that's tied to it. But assume that that is going to happen as well. Why the Nuggets did this deal? First and foremost, they're trying to cheapen their luxury tax bill. They were $400,000 over, and I agree, and I think it makes sense that if you are that amount over, then you should try to get out of it entirely. Denver's in the repeater tax right now. There is a desire to reduce that repeater tax bill so that okay. No, this is not pre-recorded. I'm not acknowledging comments quite yet. I'm also not acknowledging the comments that Jokic is taking his talents to Charlotte in 2027, my guy. No way. It's not happening. No, I think that gosh, now I'm distracted. The entire point of this was to the entire point of this deal was to save some money. And if you are the Nuggets, if you're a Nuggets fan, then you're pretty upset about that, and rightfully so. Denver should never be in a situation where saving money is a good thing for the fan base. It's not something that should be like celebrated or support. Like supported is one thing. Like if you think it makes logical sense, then go ahead. But celebrated, certainly not. Denver wasn't getting a lot of production from Hunter Tyson. That's clearly something that they had been struggling with. And given that they are without Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, now Peyton Watson, and everything else that's going on, kind of tough to not have to not trust Peyton Watson or to not trust Hunter Tyson enough to put him into a situation where he could play. Like pretty clearly needed to play. Here is a little graphic that I made for Everydayer Club over at Locked On that I'll share with you guys now. This is a graph that compares estimated plus minus wins on the x-axis compared to salary cap rank. It's kind of in reverse order. It's in reverse order, so it's tough to read for some folks, but if you're below the line, then you're worse valued for the money statistically. If you are above the line, then you've been a pretty good value this year, at least according to estimated plus minus total wins. And Denver's got a lot of guys that are below the line. Jokic, Murray have been great. Peyton Watson's been awesome. Tim Hardaway's obviously been a standout. Spencer Jones, clearly the best bang for the buck in terms of what he has provided versus what was expected of him. And so this is for your salary versus like how many wins you've actually put together. So you can understand why Spencer Jones is getting converted. You can also understand why the Nuggets were perfectly fine letting go of Hunter Tyson, because while he was not contributing that much, he also is very cheap. And so it was a pretty easy contract for them to move, not an onerous one for Brooklyn. Explain Too Much says, I'm surprised CB is on the line. That is because I'm using Christian Braun's rookie value numbers. His rookie value numbers. It's the fourth year of his rookie contract. I'm not currently using the $25 million per year contract that he's getting. If I was using that, then his number would be a little bit closer to about it would be over the top of kind of in line with Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson, and on the y-axis, and then you just drop, or on the x-axis, then you drop him down to where those guys are in line. So he stays in place and then would drop down to basically that second square in the middle. Not great. It hasn't been a good Christian Brown year. He's been hurt. It hasn't been a great Cam Johnson year from a valuation perspective. He's been hurt. Jonas Valanciunas, same thing. Zeke Naji doesn't really have that excuse. Julian Strawther's had a subpar year. Deron Holmes is a rookie. Bruce Brown's had a pretty bad year in comparison to what the valuation should be for even a minimum contract. He's actually, according to estimated plus minus wins, the fourth worst player in terms of how much value he has added to the team, in the entire league. Fourth worst player in the league. So not awesome. Denver needs better from Bruce Brown, especially in this situation like this. But Denver clearly, they need to find a way to continue to play Spencer Jones based off of that graphic. And so that's what they're doing. They are converting Hunter Tyson, or they traded Hunter Tyson. They're converting Spencer Jones. And to me, they could have done that and also stayed over the luxury tax. They didn't actually have to give up a 2032 second round pick and get back a 2026 second round pick in order to do that. So I don't know. You don't necessarily have to be happy with this deal if you're a Nuggets fan. I wouldn't blame you if you were. I would not blame you in the slightest. If you are a person that thinks that Denver should have been buying at the trade deadline, I understand that too. Let me see if I can pull up another thing with the salary. This one is a little bit of an older one, but with the table that's currently happening here. Sorry, that is not what I wanted. Why? There we go. Now you have Jalen Pickett as the last player that's on the full-time roster. You have 2 open roster spots. Spencer Jones will fill one of them. The Nuggets are hoping for a buyout member to fill another. But if you look at the actual matching salary, there wasn't a lot of guys that Denver could send out in a trade. They weren't going to trade Jonas Valanciunas. I've actually heard that after they acquired him, they made a promise that they wouldn't flip him, especially after he converted his deal during the regular season. Zeke Naji, they couldn't trade if they wanted to. And then Christian Brown, can't trade him because of the poison pill on his contract. Peyton Watson, that's a projected salary number next to him, but you wouldn't want to trade Peyton Watson if given what he's done, obviously. And you're already down into the $3 million range, the $2 million range. It is just very difficult for the Nuggets to get a veteran contributor on a reasonable contract that's about 10 million, 12 million, 14 million. So many of those guys are often the ones to move, but Denver can't trade. They're not trading Jokic. They're not trading Murray. They're not trading Gordon. Cam Johnson was debatable, but they're not trading him and decided not to. So I'm not surprised that they weren't able to do anything. If you look at the actual salaries, they could not do it. So there was very little flexibility for them to be able to get something done. So that is why they ultimately are in this position, why they could not make a move the way that a lot of people wanted to. And it sucks. If you're a Nuggets fan, you wanted to see them improve their team. They did not improve their team. That's something that I think is pretty evident. Now, if they're healthy, they might not need to improve their team. We don't know yet. We haven't seen what they are healthy, especially this kind of version of the team where Peyton Watson has taken steps forward. Spencer Jones has established himself. It's gonna be tough. Different Move says, can Nuggets media stop saying if we are healthy? What if we just never get healthy? Well, then they won't get healthy. I don't know. Sorry. I don't mean to be mocking. It's just what I envisioned that sound like. Look, they may never get healthy. They may not. I don't know how you stop that. I don't know how you prevent that. Maybe you can just try to restructure the training environment, the training staff, the issues that they face. I don't know. Spencer Jones fell back into Nikola Jokic's knee in a fluke accident. Peyton Watson, young guy, second out of a back-to-back. It could happen to anybody. Cam Johnson came down awkwardly, has needed a little bit of extra time. Christian Brown sustain the first injury that he has in a while. Like, it's hard to just sit here and say, oh, yeah, like this was bound to happen. Now, here's what you can say, and I think this is a pretty good take: get better training staff and better facilities. I agree. I agree. Like these are things that the Nuggets should be investing in, and they haven't. They just straight up haven't. They are cheaping out on the edges while they pay their players a lot of money, and that has been the KSE method with the Nuggets for a long time. So, yeah, can you be upset about that? Absolutely. Should you be upset with that? I think it's pretty reasonable to be. It's unfortunate though. It's hard to just sit here and say that is the way to go. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the what's next of the matter. You guys can bring up some buyout candidates in the comments. I'm curious to get your impressions, your thoughts on what Denver should do with that open roster spot if they can fit it in. We will talk about that next year on Pickaxe and Roll. But first, we're going to talk about the Vimos app. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Vimos app before, but if you want to make your nights out easier, more productive, more fun, you should absolutely consider the Vimos app. In their own words, on their site, Vimos is trying to connect customers to venues in a unique way through their app. It's a digital wallet, helps you remember your habits and deliver the brands and venues on your nights out that you actually want. So you could kind of skip the moseying around and figuring out what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you know how when you're trying to pick a movie, you just search Netflix or you search like any of these other like streaming sites and you just scroll and scroll and scroll, and then you can't pick anything. So you go with something that's an old familiar favorite. Vimos cuts right through that when you're actually trying to do stuff and you're trying to pick a restaurant, you're trying to pick a club, if you're trying to have a night activity. In one place, customers can pay for their food, drinks, redeem offers, set up events, and do contactless payments. You need to scan an ID, do it directly through the Vimos app so you don't have to hand your ID to somebody else. It's a really good system. It works the other way too as a business owner. Vimos can help manage security, verification, and risk all in one place. So make sure to check out the Vimos app, spelled VEMOS, and have a better night out. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. I know everybody is a little bit frustrated on just the lack of moves from Denver. I'm trying to explain why, trying to explain what they're doing. The idea behind ducking the tax for Denver, and you're not going to like to hear this. This is one that I think is going to be pretty frustrating for you. The repeater tax is a painful one. Denver's currently, like, they haven't triggered, they're a repeater tax team for this year. So rather than pay $1 per every, or $1.75, $1.50 for every dollar that you're over in the first bracket of the luxury tax, Denver's going to have to pay twice that as much. And the idea of the repeater tax is that if you stay in the repeater tax as often as some other teams like Golden State, the Clippers, while everybody was paying out the wazoo to keep their very pricey rosters, the idea of penalizing those teams even more, squeezing even more money out of those teams, the repeater tax is even more prevalent than it used to be. I've explained this before, but Denver, if they were to hypothetically go 20 million over the second apron next year, then their actual payments and what that would be, like, they could be upwards of $200 million in luxury tax payments if they decide to go that far into the second apron. They would never do that. That's a hypothetical, but this way they reduce that bill. And the idea is that maybe not next year, but the year after that, they also duck out of the luxury tax again. And then that helps them kill the repeater clock. It's not awesome. One of the reasons, like, the repeater tax is clearly just a ploy for the ownerships and trying to save money and do those things. The aprons themselves are actually restrictive in terms of competitive and various things that you have to account for, like draft pick compensation and the amounts of exceptions that you can offer in free agency, the types of trades you can do, things like that. And so those are the restrictive stuff. The repeater tax is just purely money. That's all that is. So this is a money saving operation. 27 teams. I am not kidding. 27 teams. This is according to Matt from earlier today on our show. 27 teams got out of the first apron or out of the luxury tax entirely. There are only 3 total teams. I believe it's Cleveland, the Knicks, and not the Warriors. There's another team in the West that is pretty expensive. There's only 3 teams total. And so the Nuggets are not alone in this. There's a lot of teams that have ducked the tax, that have ducked the aprons, that have tried to reset the clock. And the reason why is because of how prohibitive it is as a team. Like, it's really, really difficult. And I could go through and explain some of the scenarios. I'm not going to do it tonight. But like, I could go through and explain some of the scenarios as to why Denver did it, why every team is doing it. It is not just the Nuggets, although Denver's situation is even perhaps a little bit more cheap than that. Okay. You guys wanted to talk about the buyout candidates. Let's go through and let's look at some buyout candidates. Started with Mile High, says Javon Carter or bust. I would like Javon Carter. I think that he's a pretty solid, undersized guard, but somebody who's shot the ball reasonably well. If he was willing to accept it, that would be great. He was waived by the Chicago Bulls so that they could do a whole bunch of different deals. He was waived due to the Dario Saric trade, which is insane. But if he was available, that wouldn't be the worst option in the world. Delano Banton as well. That's somebody that I mentioned on Locked On earlier today. Delano Banton would be great. He's currently in the G League in the NBA. 6'8", 6'9", long ball handling capable guard. Somebody who can shoot. Somebody who can defend reasonably well. Like, that's a great option. To me, that might be the best option that Denver could possibly get. So if they are considering names, Delano Banton would be a great one. Lonzo Ball. Lonzo would be our best perimeter defender, says Krishna. I don't know about that. Lonzo, like, he is smart. Don't get me wrong. I was touting the praises of some of the stuff that he's doing other than scoring and shooting in the earlier show, but I'm not sure if he does enough from a full-on offensive and defensive standpoint. He is smart, but I don't know how durable he is anymore. Clearly, he's been suffering from major injury issues throughout his entire career. Do you really want to put him in an environment in Denver where he may have to play extended minutes because other guys are out? I'm not sure if he's going to be capable of doing that, honestly. So maybe that is a decent argument to get him while you can. He can help you kind of get through the regular season, but like, not sure how healthy he's actually going to be and what he can do. He's also shooting like 30% from the field and 27% from 3. He's had a horrible shooting season. So not necessarily sure. All right. Ain't all that, says the list from DNVR. Shout out to those guys. Chris Boucher, Cam Thomas, Lonzo Ball, Mike Conley, Haywood Highsmith, Pat Connaughton, George Niang, Kevin Love, Mason Plumlee, Chris Paul. Okay, a good list, a good versatile list in terms of the types of players that you could get. Chris Boucher would be pretty solid. I think he'd be a pretty solid backup power forward for Denver right now. Could play next to Jonas Valanciunas, could play next to Nikola Jokic. Could absolutely be helpful, especially while they're suffering with injuries. Cam Thomas, I don't really feel like dealing with all that. Super talented player. I'm not sure it's really helpful. Lonzo Ball, we just talked about. Mike Conley. Mike Conley would be great. Hear that he's trying to go back to Minnesota. Wouldn't be surprised if, like, there's been a lot of talk about him being rerouted to multiple places, and then he got waived. So I think he's trying to go back to Minnesota and be the veteran leader there. Haywood Highsmith, he's been hurt the entire season. I think if you would just talk about him as the player that left Miami and then went to Brooklyn while the injury was kind of happening, like, before the injury, he was good. after the injury. I have no idea like where he is from a conditioning and health and fitness standpoint. So I would just not go there. Pat Connaughton, decent backup wing, somebody who could just help Denver do a variety of different things. From a spacing perspective, he's a pretty good athlete still. I would like if there is a position of strength for Denver, it is that kind of 6'5" wing right now. Julian Strother, Tim Hardaway, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown. Like there's a lot of guys there. Peyton Watson, you want to play at the 2 at sometimes instead of the 3. I'm not sure how much use Pat Connaughton actually would provide. George Niang could, like he could absolutely be that backup power forward type. A little bit bigger, could definitely be helpful. Kevin Love, I mean, if the spot is available and he wants to be there, then great. I'm not sure he actually would. But he has spent the last season and a half in Utah, so who knows? Mason Plumlee, old faithful, old familiar, could absolutely see that happening, and then him being a third center for Denver, that could absolutely happen. And then Chris Paul, I don't know that Chris Paul's actually looking to play again. Like maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but would be fascinating to see. One bigger name that hasn't been mentioned, I'm not sure whether Chris Middleton is going to become available. There's at least a possibility that he does. He was traded as part of the Anthony Davis trade to the Dallas Mavericks. And Chris Middleton is somebody who I'm not sure how much utility he has for the Dallas Mavericks specifically in this case. They are going to try to tank. They are going to try to build around Cooper Flagg as they consistently will, but they want to play some of the young guys around him that they have. Like they just got AJ Johnson. They still have Max Christie. They've still got some other guys that I think you would like to see around Cooper Flagg. And so does that mean that Chris Middleton doesn't fit into that? No. But they've also got guys like Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, players who are veterans that are already in place. Klay Thompson, as mentioned. So what does Chris Middleton do for them, and what could he potentially do for a contender? Well, he would be an awesome addition as a veteran leader, as somebody who is a great locker room presence, but could genuinely help get Denver through the regular season at 6'8", somebody who has been playing a lot of small forward and power forward for Washington this season. I would love that if I were the Nuggets. Not sure if CJ McCollum's going to be available from Atlanta. Seems like they want to keep him. But if he is, then maybe that's another candidate to go with. But Chris Middleton, if he does end up getting bought out, would be at the top of my list. Denver does have the flexibility to be able to get him. Not sure if it's ultimately going to happen. Actually, I'm very certain that it's probably not going to happen. But it would be really nice to have a win here, because it seems like the message that Shams, that the Nuggets, that Bennett Durando of the Denver Post, everybody is putting out there, is that the Nuggets are going to try to be active in the buyout market. Seems like they want to be aggressive in these cases. Aggressive, I don't know what that means. Like they're going to be recruiting somebody to potentially come to the team. Are they going to actually pay them a lot and go back over the luxury tax? No. No, they're going to try to convert Spencer Jones, and then with the leftover money, they're going to give that money to whoever they can, but at a prorated minimum contract, and there's a certain amount of time that you have to wait. The actual rules there is that Denver has to, for a prorated minimum contract, Denver has to wait a certain amount of time until that prorated amount is low enough that Denver has the salary in order to do it. So hypothetically speaking, let's say Spencer Jones gets a $1.2 million contract, $1.2 million. Then they have 600,000 or so in the reserve to stay under the luxury tax. We're going to see what happens with it. We're going to see whether they could actually fit that in, but the prorated salary, it doesn't happen until March, where that prorated salary becomes a little bit less than the $600K that they have in the tank. So they're going to have to wait, which is kind of funny because they could use this player right now. They could use They could use some reinforcements right now with the injuries that they have to Cam Johnson, though he should be coming back soon, but certainly Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson. You don't want to play Nikola Jokic extensive amounts. You would like to give Jamal Murray some rest. You'd like to give Tim Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown some rest. Like, those guys have been playing extremely hard. Christian Brown, especially, like, Christian Brown played like 43 minutes in the last game. It was his second game back, and he played on the back-to-back. It was ridiculous. So you'd love to be able to get somebody in relatively soon to be able to help with that. I don't know whether they're going to be able to do it or not. So, look, we'll see what happens. We'll see what Denver can get up to, but it does feel to me like the Nuggets, at least at this point, have an opportunity to add to their group if somebody becomes available, but they've got to be like, this is what's going to happen in all likelihood. When they talk about being aggressive, you remember how Calvin Booth was aggressive for Reggie Jackson in the 2022-23 season. It was like, oh, wow, Reggie Jackson, he signed with Denver for a very small amount, and then they gave him a contract in the offseason. They promised him that. They promised him that deal. And they said, hey, no matter what happens, we're going to give you this contract. And then they followed through on their promise after winning a title, despite the fact that it was a pretty shaky idea to give Reggie the contract that they potentially promised. And as a result, they traded 3 second-round picks to get off of that contract in the following offseason because they needed to free up space for Russell Westbrook. Calvin Booth was not good at his job, folks. He made a lot of mistakes, and I called it out when it happened. If you have been following the show for a while, you will know this, and you will back me up on this. It was bad when he did it. Having to trade 3 second-round picks in order to move up for Deron Holmes was bad when it happened. Not the Deron Holmes pick, although that hasn't worked out so far. Not necessarily his fault, but because he had to trade 3 separate second-round picks in order to move up because he telegraphed the move. So, like, there's a lot of failings, and one of the reasons this Hunter Tyson trade has even happened in the first place is because of Hunter Tyson's failing, or because of Calvin Booth's failings, excuse me. He gave both Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson 3-year guaranteed deals. That never happens for second rounders. It's 2-year guaranteed deals. That's usually what happens, or maybe even a 1-year guarantee, but most likely 2. So the fact that he gave 3 years. Now, I kind of understand it with Pickett. Like, he believed in him. He understood, like, it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I mean, as you saw in that graph that I put up there, like, Pickett's been valuable in terms of what he has provided versus what was expected. But the Hunter Tyson draft pick was flawed from the get-go. And the fact that it happened, and the fact that they literally had to trade a different second-round pick in order to get off of him, just like the roster building, whether it was to spite Calvin Booth or spite Michael Malone and fight against him or not, it was ridiculously poor. And there is just genuinely no justification for what they did, for what Calvin Booth did. And so the Nuggets are paying for those sins right now. They are paying for it. They have done their own stuff. There are some things that they could have done and have avoided doing at various points. But like, the long and short of it is that they are paying for some of those sins on the edges of their roster, whether it's the Zeke Naji deal, remember that, whether it's the trading of 6 different second-round picks to then get Deron Holmes on the roster and to get Russell Westbrook on the roster for a year. Bad stuff. Bad stuff. Okay. Let's get into a more positive conversation on the other side, and we can talk about Peyton Watson's hamstring strain. Should be fun. Woo! We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients. These are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten to trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. And I am their only hope. I need to be their champion, to quote Prince Oberyn from Game of Thrones. They need someone in this trial by combat that can fight for them. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I failed.
All right. Shout out to Zainavlaw for sponsoring today's show. Welcome back in. Let's talk about Peyton Watson. Let's talk about the report that came out a little bit earlier this evening. I was actually cooking. I'd finally had some time. I was writing and reacting to news for a lot of the early afternoon. Then I was recording for Locked On. Then I recorded Late Night Nuggets, which will come out here in just a little bit. Then I was, my gosh, I finally made dinner for myself and then cleaned the dishes. And holy cow, like just feels like nothing has happened. Like everything has happened, and haven't had a lot of time. So I missed this initially, but the report from Tony Jones, breaking in all caps. Thanks, Tony. Denver Nuggets forward Peyton Watson has suffered a grade 2 left hamstring strain and is expected to miss extended time. I thought he grabbed at the back of the right hamstring. I could be misremembering. I was like busy at the time. League sources tell The Athletic Peyton Watson has been a breakout star for the Nuggets. This adds to their injury misfortune. Okay. So you guys know what a grade 2 hamstring strain means. Marco says, what did you have for dinner? I made myself fajitas, chicken fajitas on the cast iron skillet, and some cilantro lime rice. I had some mango habanero salsa with it. It was pretty good. It was pretty solid. I had a couple tacos as well. That was tortillas. It was nice. It was a good setup. But yeah, like this Peyton Watson injury is it sucks. Like just straight up sucks for a variety of reasons. Peyton Watson, I think, I don't know whether he was going to win Most Improved Player of the Year. Like, there's a lot of guys that I think were going to get credited with that, some higher level, like all-star types. Denny Avdia, I think, was going to get the majority of that credit. But, like, Peyton Watson was just as improved as Denny Avdia, going from the level where he was at as like a 7th or 8th man to a guy that Denver was relying upon for major scoring and major playmaking, in addition to the defense that he already plays. Like, it's a big deal. It was a really, really big deal. And so as Aaron Gordon went out about a week ago or so, maybe slightly longer than that, Nikola Jokic came back. Christian Brown just came back. Now you have Peyton Watson coming or leaving. Cam Johnson should eventually come back. So it just feels like Denver has been cycling in and out different players without ever getting fully healthy. And one thing that has, I think, does kind of help with that, I'd say, is I don't even know who's going to start for the Nuggets when everybody's healthy. It's one thing I've constantly thought about this. I can't tell you how many permutations and thoughts I've come up with in terms of what the Nuggets are going to do when everybody does get healthy. But here's the thing. They may never have that, as to the point of the Debbie Downer in the comments earlier. Like, it may never happen. And it just would not surprise me at all, if Denver never really has a whole bunch of controversies in terms of who's starting and who's coming off the bench, because by the time everybody does get back, I think guys are like 75%, 80%, and you've got 4 games left in the season. And now you're at that place where, yeah, you're just not worried about that. You're just worried about winning basketball. Like, there's less stuff about agendas. It's more about how do you win a championship. So it's going to be interesting. But Peyton, actually, let's address this from Bukosabi, or I assume that's how you pronounce it. Ryan, were there any rumors that what was the disagreement last summer in terms of what P-Watt was asking for versus what the Nuggets were offering? I don't know if the rumors, if there's anything that actually came out in terms of what those numbers were. I've guesstimated at what the numbers would be. I said that Denver should be pretty happy if they were to get Peyton Watson for a 4-year, $55 to $60 million deal. And obviously now you could probably double that if you're Peyton Watson based off of the way that he's played and based off of what teams are going to potentially being asking for. So I'll be curious to see what those numbers actually were. I'm sure somebody will tell me after the fact, but like, no, I don't know if there were any numbers that were actually discussed. And it's possible that the Nuggets just never got to that place where they were like, hey, we can't really offer you a significant deal because we're offering Christian Braun. And if you remember back in the offseason, that was a pretty logical decision. I said that they should try to get both. And in retrospect, they really should have tried to get both. But them choosing to pay Christian Braun over Peyton Watson in the offseason was not a crazy thing based off of the way that they had played the previous season. So things have gone drastically different for Denver over the course of the last 6 months than I think the way that they envisioned it, with the injuries, with Peyton Watson's development, with Christian Braun's regression. And now, like, they're going to have to reap those rewards. They're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. But they won't have to deal with Peyton Watson being on the court for a while, because if it is a true grade 2 hamstring strain, then Denver's fortunate that they have at least a little bit of a break with the All-Star break coming up. That is definitely a good thing. But overall, like, Denver is in a situation now where 4 to 6 weeks from now is a lot of games. It's still a lot of games being played. Today is February 5th. That is when the prognosis is coming out. March 5th is game 63. So because the All-Star break is in there, that would mean that Peyton Watson would miss 11 total games, which isn't that bad. That could be worse. If he misses 6 weeks, that puts him closer to March 19th, which is game 70 of the season. So now you're starting to get into the realm of 18 games missed, 20% of the season kind of missed. And if it's any longer than that, then, I mean, be it game 72, 74, 76, and you're starting to think, okay, can you even realistically be put back into the starting lineup at that point? If everybody else is back and healthy at that point, and Denver is looking to try to develop some chemistry, develop some like good habits at that point. Like, my God, Denver's, I think, at this place where they don't know what's going to happen with who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. So the moment that they get enough guys that are ready, that are good to go, David Adelman, I think, is going to go with that group. So I think what this is going to turn into, and maybe other situations, maybe other guys are still out, maybe new injuries pop up, heaven forbid, is that when Peyton Watson does come back for like game 70, game 72 of the season, somewhere around there, if that's the case, then the Nuggets are going to have a choice based off of who's actually out there. Are they going to try to go back to Peyton and go back to that well? Or are they going to say, thank you for the positive contributions during the regular season to help save us? We need you to be a sixth man. I kind of think it's going to be the latter. I think that that's more likely, and that they try to go back to Murray, Brown, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Like, it was the plan initially, and this is a pretty good excuse to kind of go back to that plan and at least try it for a little bit, even if Peyton Watson isn't back at that point. So again, I'll be very curious. Like, I do think that the synergy aspect of it is way more important than people realize. Like, they look a little lost in terms of how to guard, or how to defend around Nikola Jokic, how to play this system again. It takes a lot of familiarity. And they look like a team that is still thinking, that is still certainly compromised from a physical perspective, trying to get to the All-Star break, things like that. Getting back from the All-Star break, they will absolutely figure some stuff out more. Like, I'm sure getting Christian Braun back in the lab and having him play a little bit next to Jokic, next to Murray, next to Gordon, some of these guys, for at least a couple practices even, will be significantly helpful. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out. There's a lot to learn. As Double A says here, the starting five had a great defense during the start of the season. I agree with you. I think that the start of the season was far more about shooting variance and shooting luck on the defensive end than anything else. Denver faced a very weak start to the season in terms of who they were facing, how good those teams were, things like that. And I just don't necessarily think that it's super indicative. Since that point, at least before the Knicks game, I'm pretty sure, the Nuggets are 27th in defensive rating. That's with and without Jokic. That's with and without other good or bad defensive guys. Like, it feels to me like Denver's at this place that, they got to get back everybody and start figuring out how to play some team defense again, and being in a situation where they can play hard enough to play team defense again. And in order to do that, you have to be reasonably rested, and they are not rested right now. So I'll be interested to see. Okay. Going to be fascinating. Going to be interesting to see how Denver handles their stuff. Keep in mind that, Denver at this point is still a really great team. It may not feel like it right now because they've lost 3 in a row, but those were to the best team in the West, the second best team in the East, and the best team in the East. Like, those teams are really good. And Denver was clearly compromised. So, not surprised. I would never block Snowwolf. Snowwolf is Snowwolf is just not here. He's probably busy, and it's fine. I would never block him. But no, Denver's going to be okay. There's still some things that they have to figure out. You say the Wizards just beat the Pistons? Is that going on? Like, that happened? Holy cow. The Wizards beat the Pistons. Guys, I've been busy. Like, I haven't seen any basketball. Look at the Pistons, man. Good for them. Sharif Cooper had 18 points in 34 minutes off the bench. Good Lord. Clearly, they were trying to tank. I mean, Alex Sarr played 18 minutes. Keyshawn George played 18. Bub Carrington played 22. What is going on? That is a tanking game, and they still couldn't do it. That's amazing. Well, hey, I mean, good for Denver. Not good for Denver. I mean, who knows? Like, any team can win on any night, and Denver hopefully can close out the rest of this stretch. They have 3 more games before the All-Star break. They're at Chicago on Saturday night. They are home versus Cleveland and home versus Memphis on Monday and Wednesday of next week. No more back-to-backs. They still have things to figure out, obviously, but that should give them at least a little bit of breathing room at that point. And then, of course, they go back on the road for a 3-game road trip. So they're going to stay busy. It should be interesting. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Apologies. Apologies, folks. It's not full doomer from me, but I'm trying to explain. It's frustrating sometimes. It's going to be interesting to see whether Denver can bounce back and give themselves a little bit of amped up nature in terms of how they're playing and how they're doing stuff. But it feels like they're dragging. Let's see if they could finish All-Star break strong. We'll be very curious to see how it goes. Everybody, have a great night. We'll talk to you guys this weekend.